We've reached the end of our conversation today, but perhaps now, this is just the beginning of a conversation you need to have with someone you love. Talking about feelings isn't a sign of weakness. In truth, it's one of the greatest strengths a person can have, especially in our later years, because when we speak from the heart, we build bridges that time can never destroy. How many stories were left unfinished for lack of a single word? How many relationships were lost to pride, silence, or fear? Today you have a new chance, not to change the past, but to transform the present, to take that first step, to open your heart, and perhaps heal an old wound. Remember this: your voice still has power, the power to unite, to forgive, to comfort, to transform. And if this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone in your family, maybe a sibling you haven't spoken to in years, a child who's grown distant, or even a friend who also needs to hear these words. Leave in the comments which part touched you the most. Today, who would you like to have an honest conversation with? Let's start a chain of reconciliation and listening right here in the comments. If this content resonated with you, subscribe to the Elderly Wisdom channel. Every week, we share thoughtful reflections on life, relationships, and the value of time. You're not alone. We're on this journey of growth and reconnection together. Now take a deep breath and ask yourself, what conversation do you need to start today? Go ahead, with kindness, with patience, with wisdom, and with the certainty that life still holds many new beginnings, even for those who've lived so much. When speaking becomes a gift, speaking can be a simple act, but at certain moments in life, speaking becomes a true gift. In our later years, many carry untold stories, beautiful memories, lingering pains, old regrets, and also valuable lessons. Wisdom only time could teach. But you know what happens? We start believing no one wants to listen, that the younger generations are too busy, too distracted, too impatient. So we stay silent, keeping inside all that could be shared. What we forget is this: our words can heal. Heal others' wounds by showing them they're not alone. Heal our own by releasing burdens we've carried for years. Think of how many times you held back tears to avoid worrying your children. How many times you swallowed words to prevent arguments. How many times you smiled on the outside while aching inside, speaking about it. Speaking openly with someone you trust in the family can be liberating, and more. It can open doors for others to speak too, because when one speaks from the heart, the other feels safe to open theirs. Consider this example. Donna Cecilia, 68, was always a strong woman, raised 3 children mostly alone, faced financial struggles, lost her husband young. She never complained, always steadfast, always smiling, but one day her eldest granddaughter asked, "Grandma, have you ever cried in your life?" Donna Cecilia smiled, but that afternoon she sat with her granddaughter and spoke about her loneliness, the sleepless nights, the fear of not being enough. Her granddaughter listened quietly, then said, "Grandma, I feel that way sometimes too." 2 very different generations, united by an honest conversation. From that day on, their relationship changed. Her granddaughter visited more, listened more, asked more, and Donna Cecilia felt truly heard. For the first time in years, all because she chose to speak. Understand this: you don't need grand speeches, you don't need perfect words, you just need sincerity. To say, "I've been feeling lonely. I miss when the family gathered more. There are things I've never told you." These simple phrases have power. They show you still feel, still think, still matter. That your story isn't over. It still has much to teach. When you speak truthfully, you give a gift of connection, empathy, closeness, because no one can guess what another feels. Even those who love us sometimes need to hear it to understand. So next time your heart feels heavy, don't hide it. Speak, not to complain, but out of love. Speaking gives others the chance to know you better, to realize that even after all these years, you still have much to offer, and much to feel too. This is how silence becomes dialogue, how distance becomes an embrace, and how words become the most beautiful gift you can give someone in your family, the weight of unspoken words. Sometimes what hurts isn't what was said, but what was never spoken. Words stuck in your throat, out of pride, fear, or just waiting for the right moment. But time passes, and unspoken words grow heavier, an invisible weight that piles on the heart and turns into regret. In our later years, this becomes even clearer, because we look back and see missed opportunities. The hug we didn't give, the apology we kept inside, the "I love you" that never left our lips. The truth is, silence carried for years becomes too heavy a burden to bear alone. Take Seu Americo, 73. He and his brother, Francisco, fought over an inheritance, an argument that lasted minutes, but led to 10 years of silence, 10 years without speaking, 10 years without eye contact, 10 Christmases without a Merry Christmas, all because neither would yield, and no words were spoken to mend it. Time passed. Pride remained, until Francisco fell ill. Then with a heavy heart, Seu Americo visited his brother in the hospital, sat by his bed, held his hand, and simply said, "Sorry it took me so long." Francisco wept. Nothing else needed saying. Because in that moment, what mattered most was what was finally spoken. But not everyone gets that chance. Many miss the opportunity. Because sometimes, time doesn't wait. So ask yourself now, is there someone in your life you'd like to have one last conversation with? Someone who deserves to hear your words, even if just "forgive me" or "I miss you." Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for the perfect mood, the right day, the ideal moment. Say it today, because unspoken words can become deep regrets. And regret, that can stay with us for life. Speaking isn't losing. Speaking is freeing, freeing the other, and freeing yourself. You might think too much time has passed, but it's never too late to restart a conversation. Even if it begins with just, "Can we talk?" Most times, that's all the other person is waiting for. A gesture, an opening, a bridge. Life is short, and in old age this truth weighs heavier. So if there's something you've been holding inside, don't carry it for years when it could be resolved in minutes. The pain of speaking may be great, but the pain of never speaking, that's far greater, and often irreversible. So look inward and look around. Who are the people you need to open up to? What words do you need to say before time takes the chance away? Be strong, be humble, and be wise enough to understand. Silence may feel heavy, but speaking, even when hard, can bring the lightness your heart needs. The fear of being judged. You know that heaviness in your chest when you think about opening up to someone in your family? That feeling they might laugh, criticize, or worse, not understand anything you're feeling. That's the fear of being judged, and it's one of the biggest thieves of our emotional peace. Many in their later years grew up in times when men don't cry and women must endure in silence. Showing weakness was almost forbidden. Expressing emotions was seen as a sign of instability, fragility, or even moral weakness, and the result? An entire generation that learned to swallow tears and mask pain with forced smiles. But the truth is, this fear is a silent prison. How many times have you wanted to say what you felt but stopped halfway because you thought, "They'll think I'm getting weak. They'll call me dramatic. They'll say I'm making things up." And the cruelest part? Sometimes that judgment really happens. Even family, without realizing it, can minimize what you feel. They might mock you, change the subject, or respond with phrases like, "You're overthinking it. Just let it go." That's nonsense. But tell you something serious. What you feel is never nonsense. Feelings don't need validation from others to be real. You have every right to feel fear, sadness, longing, regret, loneliness. And most importantly, you have the right to talk about it. The fear of judgment often hides an even deeper truth. The fear of not being loved if you show who you really are. But here's the turning point. The deepest, Truest relationships are born when we have the courage to show what we feel, even when afraid. Take this real-life example. Dona Alzira, 68, lived in silence with her children. She was always the backbone of the house, the woman who took care of everyone. But inside, she carried a deep emptiness. She felt alone, forgotten, almost invisible. Yet she feared that if she spoke up, her children would call her ungrateful or whiny. One day, at a family gathering, one of her grandchildren asked, "Grandma, are you happy?" She paused, took a deep breath, and decided to open up even with a trembling voice. "Happy. I try to be. But sometimes I feel very alone. I miss being heard." Silence filled the room. No one laughed. No one judged. Instead, her children were moved. They apologized. They drew closer. And for the first time in a long while, Dona Alzira was truly heard. That's the power of breaking the fear of judgment. It's understanding that if your pain is real, it deserves space, and more, that those who truly love you will listen, even if it takes them time to understand. And if someone judges you, that says more about their limitations than the value of what you feel. Don't let the fear of others' opinions keep you trapped inside. You deserve to speak. You deserve respect. You deserve relationships where your feelings aren't seen as exaggeration, but as proof of your humanity. Little by little, with kindness, let go of the voice that's been stifled for so many years. Talk to those who love you. Even if it's hard at first, today's courage can heal years of past silence. Because sometimes what heals a heart most isn't time. It's the chance to be heard without judgment. The power of a face-to-face conversation. Some things can only be said through a gaze. Words sent in text messages, rushed voice notes, notes left on the table. None of these replace a good face-to-face conversation, especially at home. In our later years, many of us feel sidelined. Children are always busy. Grandchildren visit while staring at their phones. And when we try to talk, everything feels rushed. But what they might not realize is that we don't need constant attention, just genuine presence. And presence begins with eye contact. Eye to eye is where souls converse. That's where true listening lives, the kind that doesn't interrupt, correct, or try to fix anything. It just holds space. Much family pain stems from poorly handled or poorly started conversations. Sometimes, we're so hurt that we choose the worst moment, or we speak with a raised voice, a critical tone, or even sarcasm. Then, instead of connection, we create more distance. But when we choose to sit down, take a deep breath, and look a family member in the eye, something magical happens. The mood shifts, anger softens, defenses lower, and suddenly there's room for real connection. Remember, your first love? Your first true friend? Your child looking up at you with admiration? The connection was in the gaze. Recapturing that in adulthood, especially between parents and children, siblings, or even spouses, is an act of courage and love. Take this real example. Sujuon, 72, was in constant conflict with his daughter. Since her adolescence, they'd grown apart. Everything he said, she rebutted. Everything she did, he criticized. Years passed like this, both hiding behind short phrases, silent fights, and slammed doors. But one day, Sujuon invited his daughter for coffee. No phones, no distractions, eye to eye, and he simply said, "Daughter, I don't know how to talk to you anymore, but I want to learn." She cried. He cried. And there, a new chapter began for them. It wasn't magic, but it was truth. And when conversation comes from truth, the heart recognizes it. Sometimes, what blocks reconciliation is pride or fear of rejection. But when you choose to look someone in the eye and speak with an open heart, you're telling them, "I see you, I care, and I'm here, present." And that presence is what makes the other person lower their guard. That's how bridges begin to be built. So if there's someone in your family you'd like to reconnect with, don't wait for the perfect moment. Create it yourself. Invite them for coffee, a walk, or even a simple "can we talk for a minute?" And when you're face to face, look them in the eyes, Speak little, but speak from the soul. Listen deeply. And let the silence between words be a space of comfort too. In today's rushed world, face-to-face conversation is a rare gesture. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's what rebuilds bonds, heals wounds, and gives unresolved feelings a voice. Because in the end, what we want most isn't to be right, it's to be understood. And that begins with a sincere gaze, an open heart, and the humility to know that healing relationships takes more presence than words. The root of emotional blockage. Have you ever tried to open your heart, but in the moment you froze? Mouth dry, voice stuck, thoughts scattered. You rehearsed what you wanted to say 1,000 times, but when the moment came, something inside you locked up. This doesn't happen by chance. This difficulty in expressing yourself, especially within the family, has deeper roots. It's not weakness or stubbornness. It's protection. The truth is, most of our emotional blocks were born way back when we were still children. When expressing a feeling, whether joy, sadness, or fear, was seen as exaggeration, drama, or bad manners. How many times did you hear, "Stop crying, quit being so sensitive. Men don't cry, you're being too emotional, you." No, these phrases, which seem harmless, shape the way we feel and express ourselves. And without realizing it, we grow up believing that showing emotion is dangerous, that it exposes us, weakens us, shames us. And worse, we carry this into adulthood, into marriage, into parenting, into our relationships with our grandchildren. Emotional blockage isn't a lack of love. On the contrary, it appears precisely where love exists in abundance, but communication has been scarce. Think of a mother who was raised in a strict home, where affection was rare and demands were constant. She became strong, hardworking, gave everything she could to her children. But she can't say "I'm sorry" or "I miss you," not because she doesn't feel it, but because she never learned how to show it. Think of a grandfather who, out of pride or shame, never told his children about the suffering he endured in his youth, never spoke of the traumas, the losses, the pain. He built an emotional armor so thick that now he doesn't even know where he left the key. These blocks are like doors locked from the inside. Sometimes the key is right there. We just need to remember we have permission to use it. So what's the secret to unlocking these emotions? First, acknowledge that the block exists. Pretending everything is fine won't help. Sometimes the greatest show of strength is admitting, "I struggle to talk about this. I don't know how to start, but I want to try." Second, identify where this block came from. Maybe it was a cruel criticism you heard as a child. Maybe it was an experience of rejection, or even the fear of repeating your parents' mistakes. When we understand where the pain comes from, it stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher. Third, start small. A phrase, a gesture, a sincere look. You don't need to deliver an emotional speech on day one. Sometimes a simple "I was thinking about you today. I want to listen to you more. I miss you," can open a huge door inside the person listening, and inside you too. Many in our generation were taught to be tough, to endure in silence, to never show weakness. But now, with age, we're discovering that true strength lies in allowing ourselves to feel, and more, in allowing ourselves to be heard. And when you begin this process of emotional liberation, something magical happens. Guilt fades, shame lessens. Resentment makes way for compassion, because deep down, all of us, children, parents, grandparents, want the same thing: to be accepted as we are, to be loved despite our imperfections. So if you feel this block inside you, don't blame yourself. Just take a deep breath, look inward with kindness, and say, "I'm ready to express myself." Maybe with fear, maybe little by little, but with truth. Little by little, you'll realize this key has always been in your hands, and with it, you can open doors that have been closed for years. Doors that lead back to affection, understanding, and reconciliation. Because in the end, the language of the heart doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be sincere. The words that we're missing. Some words seem small, but when they go unspoken, they leave a huge emptiness. I'm sorry. I understand you. I'm proud of you. They cost nothing, but they change everything. How many times have you thought of saying something important, but the moment passed, or worse, waited for the other person to take the first step, and no one said anything? In our later years, this silence weighs even heavier, because we start looking back and remembering the conversations that never happened, the hugs we postponed, the misunderstandings that were never resolved, the "I love you" stuck in our throats. And when we lose someone, oh, how those unspoken words ache. They echo in our minds as if there were still time to say them, but sometimes there isn't. That's why this topic is so delicate, because we're not talking about small things. We're talking about bonds, about relationships that could have been lighter, truer, if the right words had been said at the right time. And listen, this isn't about talking all the time. It's not about becoming someone you're not. It's about recognizing that some words act as bridges. They mend what resentment tore apart. They heal what silence wounded. Take this real-life example. A 72-year-old man named Geraldo spent over 15 years without properly speaking to his eldest son. The reason? A disagreement when his son chose to pursue an artistic career, while Geraldo wanted him to take over the family bakery. Neither gave in. Neither apologized. Neither said what they truly felt. Until one day, Geraldo fell seriously ill, and his son came to the hospital. When they met, there was no fight, no argument, just tears. And one sentence: "Dad, I just wanted you to be proud of me." And the father replied, eyes full of tears, "I've always been proud. I just didn't know how to say it." Years of distance over 3 missing words. I'm proud of you. Isn't it astonishing how the absence of a single phrase can freeze a relationship? And here's a powerful truth. No one is doomed to repeat this mistake. You can break this cycle. You can be the one who takes the first step, who speaks the words that were missing. Don't wait for a grand moment. Create a simple, honest one. It could be over breakfast, during a visit, in a note, on a phone call. What matters is speaking. You don't need perfect words. You just need to speak from the heart. And if the emotion comes with it, let it. Because emotion doesn't weaken the message, it strengthens it. Sometimes saying "I'm sorry" saves a marriage. Saying "I admire you" restores a grandchild's self-esteem. Saying "I'm here" heals years of emotional neglect. And if you feel like too much time has passed, like it's too late now, know this: as long as there's life, there's a chance. Life doesn't demand that we be perfect, but it begs us to be true. So take a deep breath. Remember the words you wish you'd said, and still can. Remember who needs to hear them. Maybe someone in your own home. And take that step. Speak. With kindness, with courage, with sincerity. Because sometimes all a relationship needs to be reborn is one simple phrase that took years to be spoken. Have you ever felt like you had so much to say, but just couldn't find the right words? In today's video, we're breaking that silence that's been weighing on your chest for years. You'll learn how to talk about your feelings with your family in a lighthearted way, without fights, and most importantly, with results that heal, bring you closer, and set you free. Maybe you've swallowed your tears more than once. Maybe you've done everything for the sake of peace, and yet the distance between you and the ones you love has only grown. The truth is, as the years go by, what hurts the most isn't what was said, but what was left unspoken. If you're over 60, you know time is too precious to waste on silence that hurts. We don't want to spend another night thinking about what could have been said. We want peace. We want hugs. We want reconciliation. So stay with me until the end of this video. You'll learn how to turn words into bridges and conversations, into reunions, because it's never too late to rebuild the most important bonds in life. Silence also speaks. Have you ever found yourself sitting in the living room, the radio playing in the background, your family nearby, and yet feeling a huge emptiness in your chest? as if no one really saw you there? That's the sound of silence. Not the silence of the room, but the silence of unspoken words, of buried feelings, of hugs that never came, of apologies that were never said. Many people grew up believing that staying quiet was a sign of wisdom, strength, or balance. Let it go. Swallow your tears. Don't talk about that now. Phrases we heard as children and ended up repeating throughout our lives. But the truth is, silence also speaks. And when it does, sometimes it screams inside. What starts as a hidden discomfort turns into resentment that eats away at you. What starts as a fear of being misunderstood turns into distance. And without realizing it, we drift apart. Not because we want to, but because no one had the courage to say what they truly felt. We stay silent to avoid hurting others. We stay silent to avoid conflict. We stay silent to keep the peace. But is that really peace? Or are we just sweeping the pain under the rug, hoping it'll disappear on its own? Let's imagine a simple scene together. An elderly father sitting in his favorite chair. He worked hard his whole life, paid the bills, taught his son to be responsible. But he never said, "I love you." He never said, "I'm proud of you." That son, even as an adult, grew up feeling like he was never enough. He sought approval in the wrong places, tried to be strong like his father, but deep down, all he wanted was to hear, "I care about you." This is the kind of silence we're going to learn to break, because constant silence in a home builds invisible walls. People still see each other every day, share the same roof, the same meals, the same problems, but they live separated by barriers no one sees yet everyone feels. And the worst part is, over time, we get used to it. We think it's normal. We think, that's just how it is, but it's not. What's normal is feeling welcomed. It's being able to say what's bothering you without fear. It's knowing that even if you cry, someone will hold your hand and say, "I'm here. You can talk." The first step to transforming a family relationship is understanding that unexpressed emotions don't disappear. They pile up, they twist, they turn into sicknesses of the body and soul. And sometimes all of it could have been avoided with a conversation, a single sentence, a genuine look. So how do you recognize the first signs that something needs to be said? Pay attention to the discomfort, that tightness in your chest when someone brings up a sensitive topic, that unease when you hear a harsh tone but don't respond, that urge to say something but stopping at, "Never mind." These are the warnings. Small but important. Signs that your soul is begging for space to speak, and if we don't listen, time passes, and with it the opportunities slip away. Sometimes we only realize how much silence has driven us apart, when it's too late to say what our hearts have held onto for so long. In this video, I invite you to reflect, not with guilt, but with courage. The courage to rethink how you communicate at home. The courage to recognize whether you've been part of the silence or part of the change. Because in the end, speaking from the heart is a gift we give ourselves, and those who are still by our side, and it's never ever too late to start.